from Columbia in high definition. This is WIS News 10 Awareness.
Thank you for joining us for Awareness. I'm your host, Megan Norman. During the month of November, the nation recognizes Adoption Awareness, finding forever homes for foster children and others in need of a permanent, stable home. A local family of educators loved inspiring and nurturing students in their classrooms, but they always wanted children of their own to raise. When nature was not aligning with their life goals, they had to make alternate plans. There was fear and hesitation, but that did not last long after the Gary family realized adoption was the right choice. You consider yourselves to be the chosen parents. Why is that?
Because we have two exceptional children that were chosen, and actually we often say that, we were chosen, but we honestly think that our children chose us, and we are so fortunate and blessed to have such beautiful children through adoption.
Now, how did the adoption process start for the two of you?
Well, we got married, we were happy newlyweds, and we're just waiting for everything to come about just as it does in a storybook. And as time went by, we realized things weren't happening as quickly as we wanted. So after much prayer and consideration, we did explore the adoption process. It took a little while before I really bought into it, but once I did, I realized it was really a great thing for us. And once we looked into it and the wheels started turning, it moved a lot faster than we could have anticipated.
Yeah. What were some of your initial fears maybe or concerns going into this process?
Well, I guess it's kind of fear of the unknown, You think when you're growing up, we're going to get married and we're going to conceive these babies naturally, and you say, well, it didn't quite work out that way.
Right.
But once we went through it and I read about it and researched it, I knew that this was definitely for us because these are my kids. We were there at birth. We were at the hospital when they were both born, and they've just been part of our lives. We are just blessed to have them be part of us.
And Robin, 11 years and counting, how has this process been for you from start to now?
It has been a wonderful experience from day one. I had no idea that a child could bring so much happiness to your home, but then we have two children, and they are phenomenal children. They are lovable. We give them the support that they need. We love them, and they too, in turn, love us back, and I think that is the greatest gift, the love that they give to us.
Now, have you told them that they are adopted?
Absolutely. In the very beginning, we always said that we would communicate this as a blessing, and our prayer was always to thank God for bringing us together in His unique way. And once they got older, we were able to explain just what adoption meant. Right. And I knew that, at such a young age, they wouldn't really understand. And I knew that they would have questions. So what I did, I wrote a book just for them both. They had their own individual books about how we came to be a family, from when they were born, from when we went to the hospital, and the number of people that came to visit. Our family was ecstatic about the new addition to our family. Right. And
you made it seem like it was a very normal process. If
absolutely.
Not biological for you, it was still normal.
It was very normal, and we were grateful for this process. And when Randy came along 2 years later, we were even more ecstatic because it was her maternal brother, and he just made our lives so complete. And so we have our, complete family.
So any more kids down the line for you?
Well, I think that's it for right now.
Your husband said no pretty vigorously.
I agree. I think this is it. We have a way of bringing children in and, opening our homes and hearts to them in a way we won't have to go through the formalities of adoption, but we're always open and we're always mentoring children. Right. So, yeah, but this is it for our household.
At least the way we're planning it.
Right. Well, and both of you are educators, so obviously you're mentoring kids on a daily basis. Yes. And you noticed something in one of your students, correct, that kind of helped to lead this book.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that. There was a student, and she was in 7th grade at the time, and she wrote a journal entry, and her journal entry talked about her adoption and all the questions that were unanswered. And when she wrote that book, the journal entry, I knew that there would be so many other students, especially my children, that needed answers.
Now, was it a negative entry? Was she doubting where she belonged? Or?
Well, I think that was a part of it. And I also, you know, in the message, wanted to just cast away any shadow of shame that may come with adoption and portray it as the blessing that it is. Because these children are gifts. And if we could show them the love and support, you just have no idea of, you know, the life that they may lead. And it's imperative that they embrace this gift instead of focusing on what they don't have, but just embrace the family and the loved ones that they do have.
Right. And Randall, how do you think this book has helped your children?
Well, I think our students begin hearing about, my students, I'm sorry, you can tell I'm an educator. Our children begin hearing about adoption before they really understood what it was. And what I liked about what Robin wanted to do is dispel these negative connotations. She wrote these initial books, as she says, a gift to them. So it gave them the opportunity to talk it through and find out about the process for us and understand that it was truly a blessing. And like she said, once we realized what a blessing it was to be able to communicate it in this manner to our children and what she had been through at her job with her students. So why not communicate this to a bigger audience? So this is just part of her blessing, and she just put it to paper and pen.
Right, and this was 2 years ago, so you've already blessed so many people in this process. But what do you say to other future parents out there or people who may be considering adoption but have those fears?
Well, I think it's a great process. You hear all the time there are children out there that are looking for homes.
Right.
And people just don't know what the process is. Just as there are children looking for homes, there are adults and couples that are looking for children. So for us, like I said, it was an easy process. You hear how long it can be, and sometimes it is, and it can be very expensive. But there are lots of programs out there, and we went through an open adoption process for us. So we knew 2 months out, 1 week out, 2 days out that it was on the way. So we went through the entire process and picking out baby furniture and everything. But I say it's a blessing that goes both ways. You know, we know our children are blessed to be with us, but we think we have been even a greater blessing for my wife and I to have these wonderful children.
Your chosen children.
Definitely.
Now, you mentioned the open adoption part. So are you in contact with the other?
No, we're not. That's an option.
Okay.
Sometimes with an open adoption, it's really up to what happens is you have the opportunity to meet the biological parents. And we actually put together a scrapbook with my family and my wife's family and our occupation. And they went through and said, you know, this couple seems like I would feel comfortable with these people raising my child. And there are different variations. Some couples really maintain closer contact a little beyond that. For us, the contact wasn't beyond those particular days, the birthdays of the children. But either way, it was a blessing to us as well as for them too.
And at what age did you tell your children?
I started trying to explain to Mackenzie, I think she was 4 years old. And I want to say I'm in tears and like, how do I say it? And how is she going to receive it? And I told her, you know, understand, you did not come from mommy's tummy. And she asked me, well, whose tummy did I come from? And I was like, well, her name was, and I said the name. And she said, oh, does she live here? And I said, yes, she lives here. And she said, oh, okay. And she went on playing her computer game. So it wasn't like this big aha moment where she, you know, really understood what it meant. But, you know, there are times where she will come and she will ask me questions.
I was going to say, so has that progressed over time as she asks more?
Yes, she will continue to ask more, and I give her, you know, the answers that she needs. We've shown her pictures. We've been very open, you know, like anytime she asks us questions, we tell her. And we try to be just as honest as we can. And at any point in time, we've also told her, if at any point in time you want to know more, we will tell you more. However, we want to make sure that she is ready for the answers.
And you've done the same with your son, Randy?
Yes, yes. He's not as inquisitive as Mackenzie. I think that
Maybe
will come
not
with
yet.
time. Yes, it will come with time.
And we found as we went through this process and afterwards, we met many people who have gone through the process as well, and several of their friends have. So you realize this little community is not as small as you think it is.
Truly a blessing for you and your family, and you want to get out there and spread the awareness to other couples who are looking to do this. And finally, I just want to end with this. Do you think there is still a negative stigma out there when it comes to adoption?
I think there is, and going back to the book, and I'm hoping that a child that is chosen and given a family, a gift of family, would not have any sense of shame, because there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. When I was growing up, my mom was diagnosed with lupus before people really knew what it was. So she couldn't do a lot for me. So I had family friends and their mothers took me in. There are so many people that will go through and they do the things that adoption does. You take children in,
Right.
you give them what they need, you nurture them, you support them. That is just another form of adoption, but just not going through the formalities. So to the negative stigma, I hope that eventually will be
will
erased.
dissipate.
Yes, as soon as we can continue to get the more information out, cover more stories about families and their success stories, and have even the children talk about how they were able to embrace their chosen families.
Still to come on awareness.
Next thing you know, here comes 4 extra people, and you really don't know that much about them.
Blended families are sticking together. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Awareness. She grew up with 2 brothers for more than 10 years. Then, all of a sudden, her parents said their family was expanding, and not in the way she may have thought at first. Joining me now is TIERA Smith. Thank you for joining us this morning, TIERA.
Thank you.
So, how did you first find out that your parents are going to be adding some more children to the mix?
Well, we found out when we found out that their mother passed away. My cousin's mother's passed away, and they're like, oh, Teresa died from breast cancer. And she had been battling the fight for a very long time. And then a couple years later, they were like, oh, then their grandmother died. And so,
One blow after the other.
yes, it was like 17 months back to back. So we found out about the mother, and we're like, okay, they're fine. The grandmother's taking care of them. And then the grandmother passed away, and that was the only person that was taking care of them at the time. And so my parents they thought about it, and they were having mutual conversations between the kids, which was us, and themselves about, should we really help them? Should we bring them in?
And how, right? Because how many
yes.
cousins were they
It was
talking about?
4 in total.
Okay.
And actually, we had my other cousin live with me at that time too. We were trying to get him through school, so it was actually 8 kids by
Wow,
the time.
full house.
Everybody got in the house, 3-bedroom house, and we were my parents were so adamant, they were so determined to make sure they got to the household and got what they needed so they could continue their education and stay together.
Now, we're talking about 4 children here, plus the other cousin that's currently living there. What do you think encouraged your parents to make that big step? Because it wasn't like just bringing in one additional family member. I know you said your father had a youth center.
Well, he's always had a passion for helping children, and we always wanted to help people. So we've always been that type of family that will give service to our community before even giving service to ourselves. So it was something simple. We didn't think nothing of it because we always had kids around. So it was like, oh yeah, it's another person coming around to the house. Yes. And so he just decided to say, Lord, he prayed about it and said, I need to take these kids in and they need to stay together, and education is the most important thing, and I need to make sure that they receive the best education that they can.
Right, because he was not only committing to bringing them in and feeding them, but everything else that comes along with raising children.
Like raising them as his own, and he did a great job with that, as well as my mom. And I think I did a very, very great job adjusting to that big change.
Right. Well, let's talk about that, because it really was a big transition, because your parents, they made the decision. They obviously talked to you about it, but it was ultimately their say. They had the final say on it. But when your cousins came into the household, what was that transition like? Did you all bump heads? How did that work?
Oh yeah, we bumped heads a lot. It was a lot of sibling rivalry going on. It was bad. It was the fact you had the girls that wanted to be the daddy's girls, and then you had the boys. The boys weren't really that bad. They got along pretty well. It's just a clash in who was better at video games, those type of things. For the girls, we just had a lot to fight over about who was what, and that type of thing, and who was the oldest, who was the youngest, who should get this, who should get that.
Right.
So we really had to come to a standpoint and really sit down and stick together.
Right. Were there any concerns that, okay, well, we're the biological children, so,
Yes.
we're a priority? I mean, was that ever part of the conversation?
That sometimes came about because we were like, that's not fair. We can't get this, we can't get that, and they getting all these things. But at some points, my brother and I, we will look at it and say, no, they deserve it more than us. They really, really need our parents' help. So we're going to sit on the backside and be sure that they're being helped first, and our needs will come next.
And so you were 11 years old at the time?
Yes.
Okay, and some of them were younger. I know
Yes.
it was a mix of ages.
We had a lot of sets of twins. It was actually, by the time they came, it was 2 sets of twins in the house. My brother and I were twins, and we were a year older than the other twins. So we were 11, the sets of twins behind us were 10, and we also called the oldest twins because they were in the same grade. They just didn't have the same birthday, and so it was actually 3.
Well, now everyone is older and in college for the most part, except for one. What is the communication like now? What is the family relationship like?
It's a little distant, but we still keep in contact. We still see each other because some are in the military, like I told you. The oldest ones are working 9-to-5 jobs now. And my twin brother and I, we're both in college. So he's at South Carolina State. I am at South Carolina. And the sets of twins that were behind us, his sister went to the military in Kentucky, and he's in North Carolina playing football. But we all did really well. We all went to secondary institutions.
Right. Education, as you mentioned, is very, very important. Now, do you consider your cousins to be your siblings? Do you call them your brothers and sisters?
I call them my brothers and sisters. They are. They've been in the household so long. Like this year will be 10 years now that they've been with us.
Wow.
So I'm really, really excited about that.
So it just feels natural. Now, what do you say to other families who may be considering this? There could be some other children out there who are about to get some new siblings and they may not be taking the news very well.
I would say get counseling. Be sure that you guys can sit down and come to an understanding of which child needs the most needs, because sometimes that's where our problem was, because it was such a drastic change at a very, very fast time.
At a young age.
Yes, and so you don't really think about the impact it can have on everybody until it happens. So just so you can stick together as a family, I think sometimes that counseling or just sitting down.
The communication is
communication
key.
And talking with each other will really, really help out with making sure every person is on the same page and understands what is happening to them.
And finally, let's talk about your platform, because you have a platform because you are in the Miss South Carolina USA pageant. So tell me a little bit about why you chose this adoption topic as your platform.
Well, for the Miss South Carolina USA pageant, we don't necessarily have to have a platform, but I use my family and adoption awareness as an avenue to pursue my dreams in the entertainment industry. And reason being is because it was something very, very close to my heart. The matter was very close to my heart. It's about the story of my family. And the story of my family has a lot to do with my success that I have going on today. So I wanted to honor my family, as well as bring awareness to adoption awareness and pursue my dreams at the same time.
Right, and there have been a few things that you've been doing, right? There have been some events that you've had recently.
I actually planned a carnival this past summer. We were rained on, so we actually took over 100 kids from Epworth to Skateland and had a fun day for them. So we were able to use the carnival and take it inside to Skateland and had a really, really big event for the kids for Epworth. And it's something I try to do every other year with Epworth. I'm always giving back to Epworth every year in support of adoption awareness. So it's something I try to do with the kids, just to get them out of the cottages and let them know that somebody does care.
Exactly. That's a huge, huge point, because it's all about bonding and making sure the children know that they are loved. Well, TIERA, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
When awareness returns, she was told to reconsider an adoption she desperately wanted.
I did a lot of praying about it, and I never felt more at peace in my life that was what I needed to do, that this little girl was meant to be mine.
Why this child is so special to her and how she made it all happen. Welcome back to Awareness. A Midlands woman always dreamed of adopting children. The ones she wanted, though, were sick, and other people discouraged her at first, saying she needed to reconsider. So she made a decision that ultimately changed her life for the better. Life in the Cameron household is pretty normal. Joy colors and plays games with her 2 adopted children, 4-year-old Kiefer and 6-year-old Lorinda.
I saw Lorinda on a national website that was on the computer, and the minute I saw that little face, she was 8 months old, sitting in a walker, I was like, oh, I love her. I need to have her.
Joy adopted Lorinda from the Department of Social Services when she was 1.5 years old, but the adoption almost did not happen.
They actually said, "You do not want this child, she has full-blown AIDS."
Joy knew very little about HIV or AIDS.
I did a lot of praying about it, and I never felt more at peace in my life that that was what I needed to do, that this little girl was meant to be mine.
Joy educated herself and her family, who was reluctant at first, but now fully accepts Lorinda.
Because of the stigma, people are afraid to take on this particular type of child, and so they are considered extremely hard to place. In fact, I read some of her paperwork from DSS the other day about how difficult they thought it would be to ever find a family for her.
It's gonna make my cherries fall, brother. Like this? Brother,
Lorinda's little brother Kiefer does not have AIDS, but he was born addicted to drugs and alcohol and has cerebral palsy. Joy says she would not want her family any other way.
Lorinda knows that she has sick blood and that she has to be very careful that her blood doesn't get into other people's cuts.
She says that it's okay to have sick blood.
Lorinda has to take medicine every day to help suppress the virus. Joy knows her daughter will continue to have challenges in life, but that does not stop them from living life.
She's got hopes and dreams. She wants to grow up. She wants to be a mommy. She wants to take gymnastics. She wants to travel to see the flamingos in Nassau, Bahamas. She is just amazing.
Lorinda is now 7 years old. We'll be right back with the final thought. It is said children are the future. Providing them with loving homes is where it all starts. Biological or adopted or chosen, families are built on more than just blood. If you're interested in adoption, check out our Awareness Facebook page. Until next time, I'm Megan Norman. This is Awareness.